afternoon again. Welcome back to the Magic Mates Monday Cup. We have been joined by a member of the Ellis Crime Syndicate, Celeste Ellis. Because of the technical difficulties, we're going to be doing the draft a little bit differently. Celeste, can you...
Yep, so as Daniel was saying, we weren't able to stream the draft we intended. However, we were always planning to show you another draft. So luckily I was down there with my camera taking photos of Dominic Ellis's draft. So we're going to present those photos to you now. I'll run through sort of the general, how the picks were made and make sure that we get the right slides up. And then I think we'll get some analysis from Zach. All right, so this is Dom's pack one, pick one. As you can see, Feed the Swarm. What do you think of his pick, Zach?
Feed the Swarm's great card. Probably in contention for best black common alongside Deadly Alliance. I think it's of note the flexibility, being able to hit enchantments with this is actually super relevant in this set, given the power of Roost of Drakes, Felidar Retreat at rare, and Bubble Snare and Nahiri's Binding at common. So the enchantment clause is much more relevant than you'd think. And catch-all removal for 2 mana with a small downside, I think,
drafting this myself, we moved on. Cool.
Okay, so you can't quite make that out, but that I think it's this Sundering Spark Mage.
Yeah, so that's we were talking about this card just before actually. 3 and a red for 2/2 wizard, and when it enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, where X is the number of creatures in your party. Very solid card. Comes down on turn 4, and often acts as a chupacabra, kills something on the other side. Interesting to note that on face value, this card maybe looks like it's most at home in a wizard's deck, given it's a red wizard, but it's actually most at home in a archetype where you can get a range of different creature types, so that it's hitting for X's more than one. Primarily red black, you tend to see it do best, but very solid second pick, I think.
Great. Okay, so now we see a bit of a pivot in terms of colors. He's picked up Insta. I'm going to point out at this point something interesting that you might not realize watching at home. These drafters do know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
Some drafters in particular have reputations for favoring certain color pairs. One such drafter is Jim Bandis, who is well known for preferring black and white decks, if possible. Sometimes he can't play black-white, but he's always looking to play either black or white at least. That drafter is to Dom's right. When I saw this pick, I was thinking Dom is considering the fact that Jim's to his right.
It is interesting, the specific metagame that happens here. Playing together every Monday for years, you tend to know each other's preferences. And I do think that this would have been a consideration for Dom here, specifically with Jim, because he leans so, he does very much favor playing black-white. I think Into the Royal is a great third pick here. Second best common in the set. Some people have it at first, ahead of Royal Eruption. I mean, those two are very close on power level, I think. Very flexible card. Goes well with his second pick, I think. I was talking about the Thundering Spark Mage being most at home in a red-black deck, but I think you're also happy to play it in red-blue. So at this point, Dom's leaving himself open.
Perhaps a bit of a meta call.
Yeah,
but a good pick either way. Okay, not the greatest photo, I apologize.
So pick here Swarm Shambler. It's the green 1-drop, and it enters with a +1/+1 counter on it. And whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, you create a 1/1 token, and you can pay 1 and tap it to put a counter on it. So basically each turn you can pay a mana, tap it, and it grows, gets a counter on it. Super solid 1-drop, comes down on 1, becomes a real threat as the game goes on. Nice place to sink your mana.
Is this a signal?
I think it's a signal. I think the problem with this card is that green is the weakest color in the set. I think I know that Dom also has that opinion. I've done a lot of drafts with Dom. We're both, into the hundreds of drafts on Arena together. And I know that we both tend to stay away from green. So you really need a reason to move into green. I think this is a reason to look at it. I think getting this 4th pick maybe suggests that green is open to his right. But, I mean, this card isn't super synergistic in the best archetypes. I guess it's most at home in green-black because you've got the counter synergy, but I mean, green-black isn't really the place you want to be unless you're getting paid off with all the rares and uncommons. So I think this is probably a hedge pick here, just in case green is wide open, but I think Dom is going to do his best to not play green.
A fungus for the hedge pick.
A fungus, yeah. All right, moving on to pick 5.
Okay. So you can't see the name here.
This is a Grotag Bug Catcher. It's a 1 and a red for a 1/2 with Trample. It's a warrior, and whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each creature in your party. Very solid 2-drop.
One of the better 2-drops.
Definitely.
Common, right?
One of the best red commons as well. And also most at home in red-black, which Dom is definitely... he has that Into the Royal in his pile, but he also has the Spark Mage and the Feed the Swarm that he picked up first pick. So at this point, he's probably thinking about red-black, I would say, despite picking up a blue and a green card. It is interesting to note that there's a Core Blade Master here. This is an uncommon, 1 and a white for a 1/1 with Double Strike, and Equipped Warriors you control also have Double Strike. Very powerful card in red-white, and actually one of the main pulls into that deck, I think, maybe even ahead of the red-white gold card Lord. It really does work, particularly, there's that one of the strongest curves you can have in the red-white deck is Core Blade, the 3/1 into Core Blade Master and the equipment that gives flying, and you can hit for Double Strike in the air for 6 on turn 3.
So what would be a reason for Dom not opting for that card
I think
at this point?
Based on what he's picked so far, he has the Spark Mage in red. He doesn't have any white cards. And none of his cards really go into red-white right now. So I think, the Grotag Bugcatcher will still always make his deck if he ends up red-white. And definitely goes better with the cards he currently has in his pile.
Okay, so I believe this is the, I'm not sure of the name, but it's
Expedition
the 3/2,
Diviner.
the 3/2 wizard for 3 and a blue, it's a flyer, and if you control another wizard, draw a card when this creature dies. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So this is an interesting pick to me, actually, seeing that there's a Fisher Wizard in the pack too. And this is where I think that maybe Dom is reading the table a bit in terms of who's passing to him. I think Fisher Wizard is a great card in red-black. And based on what Dom has in his pile right now, I would say red-black is probably what he'd be thinking.
I can tell you this pick tormented him. He switched between these two cards many times, and I think you must be right that he's playing the meta a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he did pick up that third pick Into the Royal, which as one of the best commons in the set, I think maybe could be seen as a bit of a signal. I'm not sure if there was another common taken above it in that pack, but this is an interesting one because Fisher Wizard is a very solid role player in the red-black deck. Just that ability to pitch a land if you're flooded, or a spell if you're looking for lands. It's very powerful. It's a creature type on the board on 2, so I think he's probably leaning towards red-blue at this point, but I think that's definitely a bit of table reading there from Dom, and leaning towards blue, who he knows might be more open.
The Spellcraft.
Yeah, this is another interesting pick. Synchronized Spellcraft, 4 and a red for an instant, deals 4 damage to target creature, and X damage to its controller, where X is the number of creatures in your party. Bit of a clunky one. It's definitely not one of the better red commons at 5 mana for 4 damage, a bit overcosted. And you really do want to, ideally you want to be hitting them for 2 with the party subclause here for it to be decent.
Yeah, there wasn't a great deal in the pack. I guess he did, as you can see, there's that reasonable uncommon in green, but it would be it'd be branching off into yet another direction, which I think there
is some consideration with the Horn Beetle there, given that he has the Swarm Shambler in his pile as a recurable source of +1/+1 counters, but again, probably leaning away from green. Okay, here branching out into another direction potentially with a Subtle Strike. Maybe thinking
from memory, not the strongest pack, and I think that was part of it.
Yeah, maybe he's thinking about red-black again based on what's in his pile. Subtle Strike again, very solid trick.
It's an awkward set for Subtle Strike. It's been better in, say, Ixalan had Skullduggery, and in Kaladesh it seemed to do more because you were getting into combat.
Definitely, I think that's true, but definitely I think the first copy pretty much always make your deck, so probably decent pick up there for Dom. Molten Blast out of the next pack. Again, bit of a clunker, not one that you're happy to play more than one copy of, I don't think.
What I was thinking with these picks, this and the Spellcraft, was, the one deck that you are slightly happy to play cards like this in would be Wizards. There's a little bit of instant and sorcery synergy. No, definitely. I agree with that. But certainly not, you're not excited about it. This is a better pick.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So this is a again, an interesting card, and we were talking about this before, the tension in the set between, you know, your tribal payoffs and your party payoffs. So again, on face value, you know, 3-drop wizard, you would think it would be most at home potentially in the wizard's archetype, but again, this is a great card in red-black. Coming down on turn 3 after the Grotag bug catcher that he has in his pile as well is, you know, one of the strongest starts you can have in this format. You know, play bug catcher on 2, electromancer on 3, add 2 mana, play another 2-drop, and it's oftentimes that can put you very far ahead on board. So I think, you know, you'll play it in your red-blue deck, but
so we're getting pretty late in the pack here, so I don't think there's too much strategy going on with his last couple.
yeah.
What pick is this? Is this last pick or?
No, still got 3 or 4 more picks to go.
Okay. Still blood price.
How do you feel about blood price?
I have started it before. It's not really where I want to be. Probably a good option out of the sideboard, you know, potentially, given that we're not playing best of 1 here.
Okay, so here's a little look at where Dom ended up after pack 1.
Looks like he
Can't
rounded
see
out with a
everything, but-
utility knife. I think that might be based on that sliver of art I can see. Maybe the 1-drop rogue that gives
Yeah, but
evasion.
that is the card.
And I think maybe an Akum Hellhound as well.
Yeah.
Oh, the
So
dog.
for most of his, you know, most of the cards you're looking to play, we had a look at.
I think I have drafted the set too much from being able to turn that from 1 millimeter of image. Moving on to pack 2. Very interesting pick 1 here. Relic Axe. So probably the best equipment you can have in your red-white warriors deck. Interesting to note that he did pass that Blade Master early in pack 1, so I wouldn't be surprised if someone on his left is going to be taking the red-white cards ahead of him. I would assume this must have been quite a weak pack.
Yeah, so as you can see, there was an uncommon there, which is quite powerful, but it's, you know, it's the same archetype. Beyond that, yeah, there wasn't anything really obvious for him.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess he's just taking it on the outside chance that he ends up playing it.
Yeah, probably just a hedge pick there based on a weak pack potentially. Okay, now this is a great pickup.
Yeah.
Particularly second pick, you're happy to see this. Magmatic Channeler, one of the better red 2-drops. It's a rare. It's a 1/3, and as long as you have 4 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, it becomes a 4/4, and you can also tap it and discard a card to exile the top 2 cards of your library and play one of them this turn. Really solid 2-drop, you know, relevant late, relevant early.
Does it all, really, doesn't it?
Triggers your wizard synergies.
It's a lot of value for a 2-drop.
Looks like he's really found his channel here.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I do think there's still a bit of, like, I think he's red. I think he knows he's red. Not so much because his red cards are super strong, but I think based on what he has in his pile, he's going to want to either be red-blue or red-black here. So it's going to be interesting to see the next few picks here. And pick 3, Bubble Snare.
This was interesting. Dom had the Hellion at the top of his pile for a long time, and I think, you know, he was his logic was, I'm pretty confident I'll be red.
Yeah.
Maybe I can consolidate, but at the last minute he went for the Bubble Snare. And I'm thinking, just for power, the Bubble Snare is a bit of a better pick.
This actually to me seems like maybe the most important pick of the draft so far, because as you said, the Relic Axe means he's thinking about red-white potentially. He's definitely thinking about red-black and red-blue. So yeah, he's definitely red at this point. So taking the Hellion is the safe pick because, you know, it might not be the most powerful card, but it's going to make his deck. Picking up the Bubble Snare, though, there is a big power level difference. And I think at this point, he'll probably start thinking about red-blue. I mean, the tempo advantage you can get from double spelling with Bubble Snare on 4 is very powerful. I guess the only downside to Bubble Snare in the red-blue deck is that it's not synergistic and that it doesn't trigger your wizard stuff, but still a very powerful
just a
card.
powerful card,
Nonetheless, yeah.
And another Diviner here as well.
Yeah.
How important do you find evasion in the format? Because
Flying is fantastic. I think flying is very, very, I mean, it's good in almost every format, but this format as well.
Particularly, yeah.
As always, I think it's very important to have not only evasive threats, but ways of dealing with evasive threats.
Very interesting.
And there you go. So
yum!
looks like Dom has now found his lane and committed. I mean, this is coming in from the left, so it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get hooked up with this archetype in the next pack, but he's very happy to see a 4th pick, Amara Mystic, 5th pick here.
This was a very easy photo to get because whereas normally Dom's, you know, umming and erring a bit, this you quickly made the decision and presented
yeah.
the card for photography.
So I think he's feeling very good about his bubble snap pick here.
Yeah.
This has actually been a very interesting draft so far, and I think he's been pulled in a couple of different directions. But I think that common red thread, despite not seeing maybe, he hasn't seen a Royal Eruption yet. He hasn't seen any of those premier red commons. I still think, based on where he was positioned at the end of pack 1, he really wanted to find his second color to pair with red. Seems
and
like
this is great because this is a real payoff, right, for the Wizards.
this is a huge payoff. They're picking up a kite sail here over second Molten Blast. That's interesting. I mean, you're never happy. You're not over the moon to play the first Molten Blast, and you're definitely not wanting to play the second. I do think based on the number of evasive threats he already has with the double Diviner and the Imara Mystic, I'm not sure that this will make the cut in the end. I think this is definitely most at home in red-white, but
just thinking about this card.
Great card, and I know Dom has a personal love for it based on my experience drafting with him. This is much better than it looks on face value too, particularly when you're in Wizards. I mean, you're cycling it when you need to. You're winning combats. You're buying yourself time, triggering your stuff.
It's not that unrealistic to get a 2-for-1.
Yeah, exactly.
For one mana, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and the great thing about it is how late it goes. You can really pick them up quite late. And
so another Electromancer here. It's pretty solid.
Pretty solid. I mean, he would like to actually pick up more bug catchers, I think, given the distribution of his cards right now, because that curve is just so strong, going bug catcher into Electromancer. So, Scorch Rider here over Tormenting Voice. I think at this point he probably is maybe a little sketchy on wanting to just make sure he picks up enough playables. I think he, took quite a few black cards pack 1 and probably just wants to shore up his curve. I think Tormenting Voice isn't great in the set, so
the Warrior sub theme might not be irrelevant as well.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, okay, interesting. So he grabs Ravager's Mace here, and maybe he's questioning his decisions a little bit, but
yeah, I could see this as potentially a little bit of a counter draft. I mean, he could play, I think that's a Sneaking Goblin, but there's, I guess he's thinking there's a small outside chance that I move back to black. But also it's a powerful card. There's not much else for me.
Yeah, I think and he already has one Sneaking Guide in his pile. I don't think he's playing 2 in red blue, so it's up a Shell Shield here again, probably a late pick. I mean, the card goes fine with the Mara Mystic, but I don't think you really want to have to play it in red blue.
The black equipment in his hand as well means that if there is a drafter in Rogues that maybe they're on the other side of the table or something.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on to round out the pack.
How highly do you think of his equipment in this set? Like, we haven't moved on.
Grabs an inordinate rage here. Again, solid trick, not
niche player.
Yeah, I think
role player.
If you end up with 2, 3, 4 bug catchers, it can do work with trample. Given that it's +3, it's a lot of damage to push. And also to note, if you play it on your Imara Mystic, it's 6/3, gets quite big, so potentially a consideration. Okay, grabs the Cleansing Wildfire here. It's a sorcery, and it also enables a splash. And spoiler alert, there may be a card that Dom wants to splash. Opened in pack 3. We'll find out.
We'll see.
So that could be an important pick there.
Getting pretty late in the pack.
Yeah, just rounding out.
Oh, that's funny.
Rolling
the last pick, Rolling Vortex. I haven't seen this played at all.
I think more of a constructed plant. I don't think anything that is going to be relevant landed here.
So how would you rate pack 2 for Dom?
I don't think Dom's over the moon right now. I think he's been pulled in a couple of different directions with red blue and red black. And I think at this point he's much more likely to play red blue, I think, in his mind. But I don't think he has the strongest first 2 packs that I've seen for that archetype. Particularly having the, I think he's in this spot where he has red and blue cards, but they might not all be red and blue cards that are most at home in a red-blue deck. If you know
maybe a little light on payoffs.
Yeah, I think so too. But here we have...
This is interesting.
So, Felidar Retreat, we spoke about it earlier in the stream. Best card in the set, I think.
That was amazing foreshadowing of you to mention the one bomb that Dom was going to open.
Yeah, there you go.
Might have had a little bit of a heads up insight. But,
I think very, very, very powerful card. Makes all your lands 2/2s or
easily splashable.
So he picks it up here, and I think that Cleansing Wildfire pick is quite relevant now, because I think if he picks up another card or two that
Help
has
splash,
synergy
or-
as well with instants and sorceries, again, Cleansing Wildfire enables your synergies and allows him to splash. So,
Sure.
So another Into the Royal here,
again,
pretty
great
reasonable,
combo.
and
Another Into the Royal.
that's not the same photo. That's another Into the Royal.
Three.
so
So he's now
pack
got
two,
three Into
pack
the Royals
three,
in his pile.
Just feeling reasonably good about
The
these
tempo
first three
game,
picks.
very
Yeah,
strong.
I think that's great. I do think one small thing to note is that the way Dom's deck is looking now, I think he's more on the tempo aggressive side of things rather than, red blue, as is often the case, can lean more controlling or more tempo oriented. I think he's on the tempo side of things. Will he want to compromise his mana base and streamline plan to splash the Felidar Retreat? I still think probably yes, but
Really glad he moved into blue, I bet.
yeah, another great pickup. Bubble
Yeah,
Snare.
so these are all like fairly strong playables.
Yeah, I think he's feeling.
Still waiting for, I guess, a second payoff. Or
Yeah,
was that the
I think
1/3?
he would love the Relic Amulet at this point, but
Chilling Trap. The second Chilling
Chilling
Trap.
Trap, I think that definitely makes the cut.
yeah.
I think you're playing 3 of them and you're happy.
Yeah.
I do think he wants another payoff.
One thing
for
at this
so.
point I was thinking when I was watching him live was he's getting some good playables. The creature count is low.
Yeah. Well, that's
the
a good.
goose. Cunning goose.
This
Very,
helped.
very
This
solid
helps.
blue common. Again, this just really goes to show too how deep blue is it common in this format. Like, I don't think Cunning Geyser Mage is in the top 3 blue commons, and it's still a fantastic card that's always going to make the cut, and you're very happy to play it. So, Dom getting hooked up
Ticks
here.
all the boxes.
Yeah, exactly. Hooked up with a Geyser Mage.
So his positioning seems pretty good at this point. Yes, he hasn't been past any massive rares in blue, but
No,
he's
but-
gotten a stream of solid playables.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's the powerful thing about this archetype too, is that the bulk of it the bread and butter is in the common slot. So
So another Diviner.
that's his 4th Diviner.
He's sort of putting together a win condition
Yeah,
now with the
seems like-
evasion.
He does have quite a lot in the 4-drop slot now with the 3 Diviners, the Scorch Rider, and kicked into the Royals. But I think
I guess the Diviner's, it's not bad in multiples.
yeah. Oh, now this
That's an
is actually a good pickup. So this card, particularly in best of 3, I think is a great tool to have access to. It has actually overperformed for me even in best of 1. I think just having access to that effect can be so powerful, and there are a lot of X1s in the format.
And it's slightly more flexible than your standard deal 2 to everything, right?
Exactly.
Like you can finish something off with the deal 1, or you can create a situation
Yeah.
where you get more value than your...
I mean, his deck isn't super well positioned to take advantage of it because he does have a lot of X1s and X2s, and I think with that card, something interesting to have is access to Fisher Wizard in the 2-drop slot, so that you can pitch it if it's not relevant, it's going to hurt you more, but he doesn't have any of them yet.
Living Tempest. So
again, fine playable.
Could make the cut.
Could make the cut with triple Insta Royal and Chilling
Yeah.
Trap. Just having things to do at instant speed could be...
Doesn't have many at 5. Anything at
No,
much
I
at 5.
don't,
So.
apart from the Spellcraft, I think. So
Yeah.
it might be nice to have that to hold up alongside his other instants. Not
I
sure.
know Dom does love playing at instant speed. so-
He definitely does. Okay, picks up Sentinel here. Another fine playable. I don't think he's hoping to play this in this
Yeah,
deck. He wants to be on the front foot and
If
attacking.
he just finds himself short on creatures, maybe. But
Maybe,
yeah,
and maybe
he
out
really
of the
wants to
board
be.
for some reason. But I think that card can be a real liability if you have a great curve in your hand and then you want to, beat
Probably
down.
have incidental counters to throw around as well.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. I actually saw this pick and he took the spare supplies over a Cascade Seer, which is the four mana blue wizard that scries X, where X is the number of creatures in your party. I mean, he hasn't picked up a field research yet. He hasn't picked up any draw spells. Maybe he wants access for...
And from memory, he doesn't have that much to do on turn 2.
No, and he's also quite clogged at 4. So I'm not sure if this makes the main board, but potentially in a more...
So slightly unusual, but contextually,
Contextually, I think
Not
it
a
makes
bad
sense.
pick, yeah.
Always good to have one lying around.
Yeah, definitely. Lying around spare.
Yeah, that's what I was setting you up for.
another spellcraft. What odds do you think this has of making the cut?
Look, I mean, thinking about where he's positioned at this point, he actually only has the one other spellcraft as a way of permanently removing something from the battlefield. He has the bubble snares, but they're just tapping things down, and he has the Into the Royals. But he hasn't picked up a Royal Eruption, and he hasn't picked up any other damage or kill spells. So there is the chance...
So consideration.
It's a consideration, particularly if he sees maybe in game 1 a card that has a very powerful passive effect on the battlefield. He might think about putting it into... to
Okay,
do
yeah,
this.
that's a good point. I mean, a lot of Magic these days gets played online for a number of reasons, and the Premier Online format is best of 1. How big a deal do you think sideboarding is going to be today?
I think it's going to be a huge deal. I think particularly when you have such a strong field as this one, like you're going to be looking for edges wherever you can get them. And I think definitely, you know, there will be a lot of very high level sideboarding, I think. And I think Spellcraft is second Spellcraft will be a good card to have access to. Not sure if it'll make the main deck, but it could do.
I think we're getting to the end of the pack here. I think this is
Don't
the
think
second
this
last
makes the cut.
pick.
Oh,
No respect.
No respect.
No
I mean,
respect for my
me and Dom have a lot of love for this card, but I don't think he's super well positioned to have it in his main deck. Is this the last pick?
Yeah, I believe that's the last card.
Okay, so
now that we've seen it all, how do you feel that went?
I think Dom would be at a 6 out of 10 on the happy
6 out of 10.
scale. I think his lane wasn't cut, and I actually think taking a look around the table as everyone was building, I'm pretty sure that everyone was in a different color pair on the table. So I mean, that really goes to show the caliber of the drafters we have here. Everyone is definitely reading the signals, and
I mean, even at the Pro Tour, you know, that's no guarantee that people are going to find their lane, not fight over things.
No.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, to have everyone in a completely different color pair, it just speaks volumes about you know the skill level on show here. But I don't think Dom is over the moon. I think his lane was probably open, and if he had ended up in red black, I'm actually not confident that his deck would have been better than what it's ended up.
Yeah, I didn't see the complete draft of Jim, who was passing, but when I looked over briefly about halfway through, it did look like he was in black white, as he was known to do.
We
so
would have known that
perhaps
before the draft started.
that into the Royal pick 3, getting into blue, was a good move, because even though he might not be over the moon about where he ended up, I don't think it would have been better for him to be in black.
And knowing as well what we know now after the draft, so Jim directly to Dom's right was in black-white, and Damon was in green-black. So the two players directly to his right weren't fighting for him in terms of
That's
colors.
very interesting.
So maybe a little unlucky in the way
the packs broke
pack
a little weak.
broke. Like,
would you say though that he's got the tools to win, or are we looking at a cap here of you know 2?
I don't think so. As I said, I don't think he's going to be going in thinking this is a busted deck. It's guaranteed 3-0.
Yeah.
But I think if he plays tight, he does have access to what he needs. He's got solid win cons in the Flyers. He's got solid late game. You know, he's got the 2-drop that pitches things. He can keep cycling through his deck. Not super heavy on the synergy, and I think he's kind of gonna want to come out of the gates pretty quick, because I'm not sure if he has the
Can he do that
tools
though with what he has? I mean, from memory,
triple into the Royal.
There weren't a lot of 2-drops.
Yeah, I mean, with triple into the Royal and double bubble snare, he is setting himself up for some very powerful tempo plays, I think. But it's true, I think he would have loved another bug catcher or two to really get him there in terms of getting out the gates fast.
It did seem like red dried up. Most of those picks in pack 3 were blue playable.
Which, like we were saying, is actually kind of interesting to me, because I think maybe he did get a little unlucky there with the way that the packs were shaking out. Particularly not seeing one Royal Eruption, given the way he was positioned. I think, maybe a little on the unlucky side.
What do you make of Damon? Sorry,
that's exactly what I was going to do. So let's go there.
Yeah, I mean, Damon's ended up in green-black. So Damon was the drafter that we tried to live stream, but had some technical issues around. His deck looks very solid. I think he was the only, as I said, the only green-black drafter at the table. Green-black is considered to be probably the weakest archetype in the format. But his deck looked very good. He had a couple of really powerful rares in the colors, and I think, as we were talking about before, this format is all about synergy, and I think every color pair, despite some being maybe on the weaker end of the scale, they all have a very high upside if you can pick up those key cards that really fuel the synergy. So I think
and Damon, he's a very good drafter. He would know when he's getting the signals.
Yeah.
He's not going to just needlessly.
Something interesting to note, though, we're talking through his second pick. So he picked up the white mythic rare in his first pick, which is a 5-drop. It's a 4/6, and it lets you search up for a party member. So that was his first pick. Then his second pick he had between the Hiri's Binding, which is the 1 white pacifism at common, and the Swarm Shambler that got to Dom in the first pick, the green 1-drop. And he took the Binding over the Swarm Shambler, and then ended up in green-black, which would have loved the Swarm Shambler as a repeatable source of +1/+1 counters. But Damon was talking about that pick after, and particularly since I think as a whole, Nahiri's Binding is on the weaker side in this format. That was definitely an interesting pick and maybe one that
Perhaps
you
we'll
might regret.
We'll hear from him later regarding. We can ask him what his logic was.
Yeah, anyway, that was a super interesting draft to cover. I think, yeah, Dom won't be over the moon, but I think he has a very solid deck and he can definitely get there with it if he plays tight.
Great. We are going to go on a short break. I think just a couple of minutes before we'll be getting into the matches. We've got new cameras running, I believe, for the matches, so we're not expecting any technical difficulties. Is there anything you guys want to say before we head off?
Predictions. Who's going to take it all?
It's a tough one.
This is a tough
one.
field.
I mean, yeah.
You've seen a number of the decks.
I took a look around at the decks. I think everyone looks solid. It's interesting. There wasn't any one deck that really stood out to me to say, "Wow, this is busted. This is going to take it." So I think it's going to be down to tight play. I think Dom looks like he's in a pretty good position with Felidar Retreat too. That could definitely do work. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think everyone seems relatively even on the power level. So
okay, just on form factor alone, I'm going to say Damon.
Oh, I'm going to go Damon as well. I'm just calling it from the hip. I just got a good feeling about that kid,
I'm going to go with Dennis.
Okay.
He's in blue-black. Rogue's a strong archetype. I think he might pull it out.
Alright. We will be right back.
With the first match.